Hi, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from RicoScores, and I feel like it's a good time to review what this roster currently looks like before we hit this draft. So we can take a step back. I know we've been doing mock drafts and everything, and I feel like everybody has a general grasp of what our biggest needs are, but I'm not sure if a lot of people have actually taken the time to look at every single player that we currently have signed on the Commanders, technically excluding Shaka Toney, who just got suspended, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to go through every position group. We're going to review all of the depth. Do we need more depth? Do we need a potential starter? How soon should we address that position? Should we go first round for a certain position, second round? What's like the range of rounds that we could potentially go for certain guys? Are we maybe waiting to sign a free agent at that position after the draft? Maybe we wait till after the draft to address some of the needs that we have. So we're really going to focus in on the depth. Do we need potential starters in this upcoming draft? What are our biggest needs? What do we need to prioritize? All of that type of stuff. And so again, I just feel like this is perfect timing right before the draft. And then tomorrow I'm gonna have my live stream. So hopefully y'all watch this video before that live stream so you can have time to develop your exact game plan for the Commanders to have entering this 2023 NFL draft. That's the purpose of this whole video. Shouts out to Hogs Haven for putting this visual together that we're going to be looking at as far as the depth chart goes. Shouts out to them. They always do great work. Make sure you follow those guys if you haven't already. But before we dive into all of that, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get notification immediately. And every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one, make sure you pull up every Sunday, including tomorrow. This is going to be a very draft-centered live stream. Of course, it's the same call-in show like I always do, where I open up the phone lines for y'all to call in, you voice your opinions, you ask whatever questions you may have. Again, it's going to be draft-centered, so we may even look at some potential prospects film. We'll probably do some mock drafts together while people are calling in. It's just going to be a really chaotic, really fun draft show. Make sure you pull up for that tomorrow, and without further ado, let's get it. All right, so let's start with the secondary. So far, what we have at corner, we have Kendall Fuller starting on the outside, one side of it, Benjamin St-Juste starting on the other, and then technically Danny Johnson as your starting slot, I guess technically. But of course, when we run our defense, usually it's going to be an extra safety on the field, not an extra corner. So it's interesting how Hogs Haven put this together. But at the end of the day, most defenses usually have a slot corner out there more often than a safety. Plus, as far as depth charts go, this is a better way to view it. You don't want to just ignore the slot position in general, whereas safety, free safety, strong safety, whatever, those are both kind of the same thing. And when we bring a third safety on the field, they're basically another free safety or another strong safety. It's not like it's a new position. I mean, my Georgia Bulldogs call it the star. Different NFL teams have different names for it. That little hybrid safety, linebacker, slot corner, whatever. Danny Johnson isn't one of those. He's a pure slot. So that's why they have it separated. But as far as the Commanders defense goes, we're not very likely to run a formation like this. Not too often. It will happen. Danny Johnson contributes a lot towards the end of the season. I don't know why he looks so bad in the preseason, but the second half of seasons when we're trying to make a playoff run, he steps up big time for us. It's so weird. But either way, Benjamin St-Juste, Kendall Fuller, you're starting outside corners. And then you have Christian Holmes, Cam Dantzler, Troy Apke. Somehow he just sticks around, always ends up coming back. Tariq Castro-Fields and DeMarcus Fields as your backup corners, with Rashad Wildgoose technically as a backup slot. Of course, we released Bobby McCain to save some cap space. And again, I keep making the point that, you know, he wasn't a great player, but it's definitely going to be noticeable that he's gone if we don't replace him, or if another guy doesn't step up in his place and is ready to step up and make plays like a Percy Butler. I'm hoping that that can be the guy. A guy that can play slot corner very well, can play free safety. I feel like he's basically just a more athletic Bobby McCain, and some of my biggest problems with Bobby McCain was his lack of athleticism, not necessarily his lack of IQ and awareness. If you could just put Bobby McCain's brain into Percy Butler's body, you have a top 10 safety in the NFL, in my opinion. So I'm hoping he can step up and take that place, but either way, we have to figure something out to replace Bobby McCain. There's a reason he played as many snaps as he did last year, even with Derek Forrest and Cameron Curl only getting better. Derek Forrest especially, Jeremy Reeves contributing heavily in special teams, all pro Revo, Pro Bowl, all pro, all of that in special teams, and he's still a pretty decent backup safety if you need him to be. We've seen what he's done in regular season games. He steps up and makes plays. The secondary is pretty solid. If we have to play a game tomorrow, I wouldn't be mad, but cornerback is very deep in this draft, and I feel like honestly cornerback is almost a big of enough need for the Commanders for us to go first round for it. But at the same time, if Devon Witherspoon or Christian Gonzalez are gone, you might as well just wait till Julius Brents late in the second, third round or something like that because of his fit, or Deontay Banks. Don't force it by taking like a Joey Porter. And I love Keely Ringo, and I can see where, because we want to run cover 3 and a lot of zone, you could probably hide him with that scheme, hide his weaknesses. But at the end of the day, cornerback is such a deep position in this draft that, again, needs wise, you could say it's a first round need, but there are so many great corners in this draft that you can wait till the second or third round and get somebody just as good that you would get in the first round. So take with that as you will. Then the linebackers, of course, nobody is very happy about this. Jamin Davis and Cody Barton as your starters, and that's it. David Mayo, the fact that he's that close to having to get on the field, I'm uncomfortable. Then you have Khaleke Hudson, who showed us a little something in that Cowboys game at the end of the season, just like Percy Butler. Percy Butler showed a little something. He looks like he's probably primed to replace Bobby McCain, but I still got to see it long term. We got to at the very least see it throughout off-season activities, practices, and training camp, things like that. Same thing with Khaleke Hudson. I'm not depending on him to play meaningful minutes this upcoming season, but if he can, that's a bonus. But I still do feel like we need to address linebacker at some point. Only problem is this isn't a great linebacker class. And then Deion Henley, who y'all know I've been on for months now. Back when I was mocking him to us, I was mocking him like third or fourth round. People didn't even really know about him. Now the cat's out the bag. Chris Sims is out here talking about he's the best linebacker in the draft and should easily go in the first round. So I might as well just go ahead and give up on Deion Henley at this point, us getting him, because we're not taking him in the first round because we have bigger needs, including offensive line and corner, which we'll get to a little later when we get to offensive line. But linebacker's still a need. The only argument against linebacker being a huge need, again, first of all, this class isn't very deep. After a certain point, it's just like you might as well wait. Maybe hopefully somebody becomes a free agent, gets cut from a current NFL team that they're on after the draft, and we can steal somebody or something. I don't know. But also, we don't really run linebackers out there much. We're more likely to have a third safety, a third corner, or a fifth defensive lineman way more than we are to have 3 linebackers out there. So if Cody Barton and Jamin Davis are good enough, then we should be straight. The only problem is, say Jamin Davis gets hurt. Now your starting linebackers are Cody Barton and David Mayo, or Cody Barton and Khaleke Hudson, and you're not going to only play 2 linebackers. So at some point, Khaleke Hudson or David Mayo are going to have to get on this field and play, even if Jamin Davis or Cody Barton are really healthy. So we're going to have to figure something out there. Linebacker is a need, but at the same time, we use linebackers probably less than anybody else in the NFL. And on top of that, this isn't a great linebacker class. But if we're really high on Deion Henley and we're willing to take him at 16, which I wouldn't be surprised about, because again, the cat is out of the bag. That may have to be the move, and Deion Henley could come in. I think he's an explosive athlete, a great linebacker. The only problem is I don't see him as like a true Mike run stopping linebacker, but man, you add Deion Henley to this linebacker group, it only gets better, but we have bigger needs, so it wouldn't make sense. And then moving on, going down to defensive line, and because I'm in the way, I'm gonna scroll down a little bit further. Right now, you have your starters: Chase Young, Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, and Montez Sweat. Let's start with the defensive ends. We'll get to defensive tackle later, which is very deep, very powerful position. But of course, you have Montez Sweat, Chase Young as your starters, James Smith-Williams, Casey Toohill, F.A. Abada, William Bradley King as your backups. We're not counting Shaka Toney because, again, he's suspended indefinitely for at the very least a minimum of 1 year for the gambling situation that he's in. He's probably going to end up getting cut. I've been saying move Shaka Toney to outside linebacker. Jamin Davis isn't great against the run. He's improving, but he's not great. He's better in coverage. Cody Barton, better in coverage, better in space, not necessarily a great run stopper. Improved as the season went on last year for the Seahawks, but we don't have a true run stopper for real, other than David Mayo. And again, I don't really want him on the field because if he's on the field and they pass the ball, he's a liability. Whereas Shaka Toney, I felt like this whole time we should have moved him to Sam linebacker. He can rush the passer and cover tight ends at the same time. That was just a waste of potential there. Now he's suspended, so really we're talking about it for nothing, but there that goes. And so, again, that's your edge rusher group, but the big problem is Montez Sweat has 1 year left in his deal. Chase Young has 1 year left pending a 5th-year option. I'm thinking that we will pick it up, so that's 2 years left technically for Chase Young that I'm assuming, but it may not happen. We'll find out May 2nd after the draft. F.A. Obata, 1 year left. James Smith-Williams, 1 year left. Casey Toohill, 1 year left. Again, Shaka Toney suspended indefinitely. Like, edge rusher right now is a problem. Like, it really is as far as depth goes, long-term goes. Today, this season, the 2023 season, if you're looking at it in just that micro view, that's it. Not looking towards the future. This is a great edge rusher group, and I'm expecting big things out of Chase Young. But looking towards the future, we're going to have to re-sign all of these guys immediately after this season. All of these guys are restricted free agents, and I doubt we'll be able to retain all of them. Not even just the battle between Chase Young and Montez Sweat probably fighting for one contract, but also all of these edge guys. Are we going to be able to re-sign Casey Toohill, F.L. Bada, James Smith-Williams, everybody by the end of this season? We'll see. I doubt it. I hope we do. Hopefully they'll take some team friendly contracts. We'll see. If we look like a winner, that's what winning does. When you show that you're a Super Bowl contender, guys want to play for that team, and they may be more willing to take a team-friendly contract if you're looking like you're giving them the best chance to win a Super Bowl potentially. So we'll see how that goes, but it's not looking too good right now. And again, best case scenario, Chase Young, we pick up his 5th-year option. He's the only real notable edge rusher that is signed past this 2023 season. Crazy. So don't be surprised if we go edge rusher sooner than you think. We brought Myles Murphy in for a visit. People have already talked about the logic of us drafting an edge rusher, maybe even in the first round if one of the talented guys slides to us, because if you draft that guy now and he's learning behind Chase Young and Montez Sweat in Jack Del Rio's system for a year, when you lose Montez Sweat or Chase Young going into the 2024 season, that guy is no longer a rookie. He's already had a year to learn in Jack Del Rio's system how to play around Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen, all of that type of stuff, and he'll be ready to go out there and ball out for you. So do not be surprised if we take edge rusher way sooner than a lot of fans think, even potentially first round for those reasons. Now, interior defensive line, we're set. This and receiver, we are the most set at, period. We don't have to worry at all. Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne sign long term, we're good. Fidarian Mathis, can't wait to see what he does. John Ridgeway stepped up big time for us. I like David Bada. And then Benning Patoa and Abdullah Anderson, both pretty decent. We just signed Abdullah Anderson this offseason, and he has some potential to him, so don't be surprised if he steps up and impresses people and looks better than what a lot of us fans even expect. Either way, this defensive tackle group is great. You'll probably bring in an undrafted free agent, maybe draft a guy like in the 7th round just because that's what we do. You're supposed to just replenish every position no matter how deep you are at that position, but it's not a big need. So far, of every position that we've talked about, defensive tackle is easily by far the position we need the least of, starter and depth. So far, just to review, cornerback, I want a starter. Safety, we can work on some depth, especially trying to figure out who's going to replace Bobby McCain, but you never know, that may be Percy Butler, but I wouldn't be surprised if we go and get Brian Branch from Alabama. He's arguably the best slot corner in this draft, even though he tested poorly at the combine. The tape is great, and then he can also play some safety for you. He can be that third safety. Derek Forrest, Cameron Crowe, Brian Branch out there at the same time. Elite safety group, in my opinion, especially potentially. And then defensive end, don't be surprised. Like I already said, man, keep your eyes peeled for that. Then offensive line, your starters right now, Charles Leno at left tackle. And then Ron Rivera already said Andrew Norwell is technically not the starter. He was your starter last year, but he said it's between Chris Paul and Sadiq Charles. Andrew Norwell is probably going to get cut for cap savings. Again, as of today, I keep saying this over and over again, but as of today, the Commanders don't even have enough cap space to pay our rookie class. So from between now till Thursday or Friday, Saturday, whenever this draft ends up finishing and we have to actually put pen to paper, probably actually a few weeks after the draft, usually guys end up signing. It'll slowly roll in day after day. So it's not like immediately. It needs to be done by Thursday or by Saturday or whatever. But soon, we're going to have to figure out what we're going to do with Chase Roulier, Andrew Norwell, maybe even Logan Thomas as contract restructure candidates, or cap relief, cap cuts, whatever. Either way, though, Andrew Norwell's more than likely going to end up getting cut because, again, Ron Rivera didn't even mention his name when talking about who's going to start at left guard. Chase Roulier is obviously your starting center for now, but we can end up cutting him to save a lot of cap space, or you could restructure his contract because, man, he only plays half a season, so he should do us a favor and give us half of that money back, honestly. Samuel Cosme just starting right guard. I love that. Love the potential there. I think he has Brandon Sheriff all-pro potential there, especially if he focuses on only being a right guard this entire offseason. Last offseason, we had him flipping back and forth, tackle, guard, and not even just throughout practicing and training camp in the offseason. Even during the regular season, within one singular game, he would play both positions and then sometimes come off the field and let somebody else play. It was just so weird. It was like, how do you expect a guy that was already considered raw coming out of the draft when he was drafted a couple of years ago to develop under those circumstances? So if Samuel Cosme focuses on right guard and right guard alone the entire offseason, that's what he's working towards. That's what he's, developing his technique around, his footwork, his hand usage. Everything is right guard centered and focused. I think he can be an elite right guard, in my opinion. Then, of course, you brought Andrew Wiley in to be a starting right tackle. Last time we saw him, he had the game of his life against the Eagles in the Super Bowl. And what position was he playing? Right tackle. Don't fix was not broken. Let him play that. Let Samuel Cosme be the right guard. And then we figure everything else out after that. I'm assuming Charles Leno is just starting left tackle, but we could easily go left tackle in this upcoming draft. I love Darnell Wright so much, though, that if you only see him as a right tackle, you figure something out. Then maybe Charles Leno is just starting left tackle. Andrew Wiley, I said don't fix was not broken, but he's going to have to move because I love Darnell Wright that much. But I think you could probably move him to left tackle. And maybe if he doesn't even start week one, you let Charles Leno start. And then as Darnell Wright gets more accustomed to being a left tackle, I think he has all pro potential at tackle, in my opinion. But either way, I mean, if you end up drafting like a Broderick Jones or an Anton Harrison or Paris Johnson, just to name a few tackles that I really like in this draft, especially my Georgia Bulldog, Broderick Jones, then we probably end up doing Charles Leno how the Bears did him. They drafted a tackle when nobody really expected them to. And even this draft, we kind of expect us to a little bit. So it's probably even more likely to happen this time around than it was for the Bears. But the Bears drafted a tackle. They cut Charles Leno after the draft. That's how we were able to get him for so cheap to become our starting left tackle. The cycle may repeat itself where we draft a tackle in this draft, first or second round. Charles Leno ends up getting cut for cap savings. And, I wish the best for him. I don't think he's anywhere near as bad as a lot of people make him out to be, but he's serviceable. He's decent. Of course, guys like Nick Bosa are going to dominate him. That's just how that goes. Only the elite tackles match up well against Nick Bosa. And Nick Bosa got the best of everybody last year, so I can't even be too mad. But Charles Leno did have a few other games, like Kayvon Thibodeau was killing him. So, I still don't think he's that bad, but I wouldn't be surprised if we drafted a left tackle in the first round and moved on from him. Or maybe you draft that left tackle instead of cutting him. You ask him to take a pay cut, restructure his contract, and now he's your backup swing tackle, basically a better version of Cornelius Lucas. And then to finish off the offensive line, you have Trent Scott as well. Again, Chris Paul, I see him potentially being our starting left guard, but I wouldn't be confident in that. So I think you're taking an interior offensive lineman earlier in this draft than a lot of people think, maybe second or third round, because Chase Roulier, let's just start with center. Chase Roulier, when healthy, top 5 center, but when is he healthy? Only gives us about a season every time it comes around. Tyler Larson, same thing, decent, but can't stay healthy. Nick Gates, so far, just over the past year, he's been the healthiest, but he's the one that's had the most traumatic injury. Ironically, against us, he's recovered fully from it, it looks like, but you never know. So right now, our center position is just a bunch of injury-prone players. So you may want to figure out what you're going to do, at the very least, bringing in a developmental center to learn behind these guys until he's ready to learn. Maybe you could draft a guy, an interior offensive lineman that's ready to start at left guard today, and then Chris Paul maybe at a certain point is ready to step up and start a left guard, and then that starting left guard that you just drafted moves to center because everybody in front of him got hurt. You never know, but I think that's a pretty good offensive line. You also have Nolan Laufenberg, Alex Akambulu, Aaron Montero, and Drew Himmelman, who we just brought in this offseason. Keaton Sutherland, a lot of names over there. Some pretty good depth, but I do want to improve starter-wise. Wide receiver position, man, it's self-explanatory. Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, and Jahan Dotson, one of the most underrated, if not the most underrated receiving group in the NFL. Then you have Dax Milne behind Curtis Samuel, technically as like a slot. De'Ami Brown, I think we should get great things out of him now that Sam Howell, ex-teammates back in North Carolina, is our assumed starting quarterback going into this next season. And you saw what he could do when he gets an opportunity deep down the field with Carson Wentz. Imagine what he's going to do with Sam Howell, a guy, again, who he has chemistry with dating all the way back to college. Then you have Alex Erickson, who's more so of a returner. Kyrie McGowan, the same thing. Marcus Kemp, special teams guy. So that's our receiving group. Not a lot of depth, so we're probably going to go receiver quite a bit late in the draft, bring in several undrafted free agents. But as far as finding a starter, we're good. And then tight end, you have Logan Thomas, John Bates, Armani Rogers, Cole Turner, Curtis Hodges again. Love the ceiling of this tight end group, but do not love the floor. Logan Thomas, if he gets back to his 2021 self, then the floor is pretty good. John Bates has a pretty decent floor, but not much of a ceiling. And then Armani Rogers, man, I see so much potential in him. Y'all know I've been screaming for us to draft him, and then after we got him as an undrafted free agent, I almost did a backflip. And then once we had him, I was screaming for him to get more playing time. You saw him in the preseason getting open in his first ever preseason game as a tight end in his life, getting open against starting Panthers corners, man. Come on now, the potential is there. It's crazy. Cole Turner was balling out before he got hurt in training camp. He's a red zone threat. And then Curtis Hodges is 6'8", learning how to block better and has good hands. This tight end group has a lot of potential, but if we're talking about floor, and we know for a fact week 1 of this upcoming 2023 regular season, do we have a really good tight end group? I'm not sure, but there's a lot of athleticism. There's a lot of great traits there that we can definitely nurture. So that's why we're more than likely not going to go tight end within the first 2 rounds, even though I would love to get Darnell Washington, especially if we trade back. If we can get Darnell Wright and Darnell Washington, go Darnell and Darnell, that would be a home run hit in draft, me personally. Then, of course, you have the running backs. You have Brian Robinson, Jonathan Williams, Jared Patterson, and Antonio Gibson. They have Antonio Gibson notably as the third down back. I think that's smart. Brian Robinson's going to probably get the bulk of the carries, but I think Eric Bieniemy can get so much greatness out of Antonio Gibson. Exactly what he was getting out of Isaiah Pacheco. I think Antonio Gibson is more talented. You should be able to do that and more with him. So I like this running back group. Don't fix what's not broken. I mean, maybe you bring in some depth. I feel like Jared Patterson, every time he goes out there, he balls out. But this organization just doesn't seem to put much faith into him. So maybe they look to fix or upgrade running back late in the draft, but they better not do it early in the draft. I think Bijan Robinson is going to end up being a Hall of Famer probably at the end of the day. And if you can draft a Hall of Famer, no matter what the position is, you take them. But outside of that, I don't think we should be going running back anytime soon in this draft. And honestly, if you really want to address running back, Jerick McKinnon will probably be waiting for us after the draft. And there's already been reports that we're interested in bringing him in after the draft anyway. But at the same time, he's a third down back type of guy, J.D. McKissick type of guy. And I really want Antonio Gibson to fully take on that role and get the ball a lot. We have so many mouths to feed. Curtis Samuel, Jahan Dotson, Terry McLaurin, Antonio Gibson, Brian Robinson, and this tight end group. I don't know how you add somebody to that. Even that's the argument against drafting. As much as I love Dalton Kincaid, and I think he's going to end up being a better Zach Ertz, and maybe even potentially almost like a Travis Kelce level type of player, we already have so many mouths to feed. There are other position groups on the team, or at the very least, other skill sets that we need to upgrade, which is why I prefer Darnell Washington, because I feel like we need to get better with blocking in the tight end group. So it's just a really interesting situation that we're in right now. Again, I'm not extremely against Bijan Robinson in the first round like a lot of people are, but I definitely would be disappointed if we took him in the first round. Then fullback Alex Armah from Atlanta. I'm always rooting for him to make the team, but he's never really going to contribute now, especially with Eric Bieniemy as the defensive coordinator. He's probably not even going to make the practice squad. He doesn't make the 53-man roster really ever, but now he's probably not even going to stick around for the practice squad now that Eric Bieniemy's here. He's going to run a really fast-paced offense that doesn't involve a fullback. So man, shouts out, good luck to you, my boy, but I don't think it's gonna happen. And then quarterback, man, Sam Howell, Jacoby Brissett, and Jake Fromm. Even as a Georgia Bulldog fan, I'm sad to see that. I do not want him on the field for any reason. At that point, I prefer to go in there. So Sam Howell's your starting quarterback. I love the potential there. He could potentially be a franchise quarterback for us, and with him basically only making $1 million per year of his contract compared to what Jalen Hurts is getting, what Daniel Jones is getting, what Dak Prescott is getting. Whoo, boy, if Sam Howell can at the very least be somewhere near them as far as production and how well he plays, That is ridiculous value, and that's how your Super Bowl window is open. A great quarterback, a young quarterback, still on his rookie deal, getting paid pennies, balling out like the guys that are getting paid all kinds of millions. Then Jacoby Brissett is arguably the best backup quarterback in the NFL, just in case if Sam Howell is terrible, which I don't think will happen, or he ends up getting hurt, especially with the type of play style that he has. And then special teams, of course, you have Tressway, Joey Sly, and Cameron Cheeseman. That's cool with me. Still got to keep an eye on Joey Sly after that Cowboys game, but we'll see, man. I think we'll be straight there. I'm really excited about this roster. Basically, to recap, I think at the end of the day, don't be surprised if we take edge rushers sooner than people expect. Cornerback is one of our bigger needs, in my opinion, because Benjamin St-Juste and Kendall Fuller are great. Kendall Fuller is only getting older, though, and Benjamin St-Juste just can't seem to stay healthy to play an entire season. So we need to draft another outside corner. That's one of our biggest needs, but again, this cornerback class is so deep, you could just wait to do that until later, to be completely honest with you. Linebackers are a pretty big need as well, but there's not a lot of great linebackers in this class, and you can maybe try to steal one maybe in the third round. Again, don't be surprised about edge rusher. Don't be surprised about safety, about them trying to replace Bobby McCain at slot and safety at the same time. Offensive line, let's go ahead and get us a starter in the first round, or at the very least in the first 2 rounds. Tight end, we'll see, because I feel like they believe in this group. I think they believe more in the ceiling than the floor. I'm a little worried about the floor, but we'll see. But I see the ceiling. I love the ceiling. Quarterback, don't be surprised. There's obvious rumors that we're interested in Hendon Hooker if he makes it to the 3rd round. But don't hold your breath. I think we'll just stick with this and keep it moving. Running back, Eric Bieniemy said something about upgrading the position, but I think we're good because, again, we already have so many mouths to feed. So at the end of the day, cornerback, kind of linebacker, is just that this class is so weak. And offensive line, especially tackle and interior offensive line, are, to me, our biggest needs. But we'll see going from there. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please leave a like in this video if you liked it, if you learned anything. As always, man, I appreciate all the support, man. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors, whose name you see scrolling on the screen right now. Man, I really appreciate y'all. I'm going to catch y'all later. Let me know how you feel about this depth chart. How do you feel about what our biggest needs are going into the draft and all of that? Catch y'all later. I'm out.